Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Chapter 10 Communication in Close Relationships. Previously, we've been discussing friendships and family. Now, we're going to be talking about communication in romantic relationships. So, let's dive right on in. We start with some of the characteristics of romantic relationship, and we start with love. Love is best defined through Triangular Theory of Love by Sternberg. There are three basic parts of love: intimacy, which is closeness and connection or connectedness; passion, which is physical attraction and emotional arousal; and then we have commitment, decision to maintain the relationship. If we have only one, just intimacy, then we have liking. If we have just commitment, we have empty love. And if we have just passion, it is infatuation. So, and then we can have just two, where we get romantic love or companionate love or fatuous love. But if we have all of it, we have consummate love, and that is what we should strive for. Next, we jump to the next characteristic of romantic relationships: commitment. Relational commitment involved in a promise to remain in a relationship and to make that relationship successful. Commitment is important in romantic relationships. Formed and this commitment is formed and reinforced through communication. Behaviors are important, but without language, commitment may not be clear. So, what are some ways that we form and reinforce the relationship, a committed relationship, through communication? A ring, that can show commitment. A relationship status on Facebook can communicate commitment. Holding hands in public communicates commitment. Moving in together communicates commitment. So there are things that are communicated constantly that communicate this commitment to both parties, and as a result, then we feel more commitment. So those behaviors are important, but we also need to communicate because we have to define the relationship. If the relationship is not defined, then one person may think one thing and another person may think the opposite. So, next, we talk about the next characteristic, and this is affection. This is beneficial for both partners, and there can be discrepancies between feelings and expressions of affection. So, how do we show affection? Hugging, kissing, other things beyond that? What do those things mean? So, that leads very much into sexual activity. Sexual activity is an important means of expressing and receiving affection. When we touch, that is on the most fundamental level how we create connection. So, in a very visceral way, sexual activity communicates that affection. Communication before, during, and after sex makes sex better because that is very much how we communicate that sort of affection, and or that's one way of communicating that sort of affection, although one person may see it just as sex, another person may see it as more, and so there has to be some communication within there as well. And how do we know what we like or don't like if we do not communicate it? This is most satisfying when accompanied by direct verbal communication. Next, we move on to effective communication in romantic relationships. This involves the 5 love languages. How do people communicate love? We have words of affirmation, things like compliments, words of praise, verbal support. Next, we have quality time, being present and available, having quality time. Quality time does not equal time, though. Because, for example, if you are always hanging out with each other, but you aren't actually really interacting with each other, you aren't really doing anything together, that may not be quality time. Next, we have gifts. The best gifts show that you know the person well. We also have acts of service, taking out trash, filling the car with gas, the chores that the partner hates most doing most. That tends to be the best acts of service. And then physical touch, nonverbal expression of affection, obviously. So all of those communicate this sort of love. So with that, we have to, last but certainly not least, we discuss managing digital communication. In romantic relationship, digital communication is something to keep in mind because it can impact the relationship. It can be a distraction, but emotional infidelity online can be a serious issue within communication. Not necessarily sex, but perhaps that emotional connection with other people online. Communication via mediated channels actually can help maintain the relationships as well. Long distance relationships could not be possible without the digital technology that we have now. Text can be sweet and thoughtful, but too much text can communicate a lack of trust, as if you are checking on them constantly. And couples uses of social networking reflects and affects how they feel about each other. So if I'm constantly communicating with someone, if I'm communicating very sweet things over social media, that reflects how I feel, but it also affects how the person feels about me. If I am pestering the other person or acting very jealous over social media, then that can reflect how I feel that I do not trust, and that can also affect the other person, possibly push them away. That concludes communication in close relationships. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.